A young girl, haunted by constant nightmares, went to the police station to report. In her dreams, there was always a headless woman coming to me, demanding that I return her head. The bizarre story left the police, but during the investigation, they accidentally stumbled upon a case that shocked all of Hong Kong. Since the content is a bit horrifying, it's advised that you hug a big stuffed animal while watching, preferably Hello Kitty. Don't ask why. The story took place in the bustling Kowloon area of Hong Kong. Places like Tsim Sha Tsui, Sham Shui Pa, or Yau Ma Ti, always lively, with food, entertainment, attracting crowds of tourists. Yet behind that prosperity, once hid a terrifying tragedy. Monday, May 24th, 1999, two women came to the Kowloon police station, one older, one younger. The older woman was a social worker from Po Leung Kook Orphanage near the harbor, an institution run by social welfare, specializing in helping troubled girls. With her was a young girl named Ah Fong. The social worker explained that recently, Ah Fong had shown very strange behavior. She often had nightmares, waking up in panic each time, muttering about seeing a headless woman, screaming for her head back. At first, she thought they were just silly dreams. But gradually, as Ah Fong kept repeating the same dream, she realized something was wrong and brought her to the police. During questioning, Ah Fong suddenly revealed a lifelong traumatic experience. I had a boyfriend named Leung Wailuan, a 19-year-old youth wandering the streets. 2 months ago, he took me out of Po Leung Kook and brought me to live with him. We stayed in an old, run-down apartment. There, I met two of his friends, and a woman with messy hair. I didn't know who she was and dared not ask. According to her account, during that time, Ah Fong witnessed her boyfriend and the two others repeatedly beating and torturing the woman. They even forced Ah Fong to take part. They made me pour chili oil on her wounds, or forced her to eat filth. I was so scared I dared not resist. What happened was horrifying, beyond human endurance. I had no choice but to obey. A month later, that poor woman was brutally murdered. To cover up the crime, the three culprits dismembered her body and tried to dispose of it. Witnessing such horrors, Ah Fong suffered severe psychological trauma, living in constant panic. Every night, she saw the woman's ghost returning, asking for her missing head. Gradually, Ah Fong's mind broke down. Because of her strange behavior, Leung Wailuan found her troublesome and broke up with her, even kicking her out of the house. With nowhere else to go, Ah Fong returned to Po Leung Kook. In the following days, the nightmares haunted her still. Drawing the social workers' concern, they immediately brought her to the police to report. At first, during interrogation, Ah Fong's mental state was too unstable to explain clearly. The police had to pause questioning. 2 days later, when she returned, she was calmer and revealed the victim's identity. Her name was Fan Man-yee, 23 years old. She had worked at a bar. The main culprit was my boyfriend, Leung Wailuan, along with his two friends, Chan Man Lok and Leung Xing Cho. When describing how Fan Man-yee was murdered and dismembered, Ah Fong's face showed sheer terror. She could say no more. With the police's encouragement, she tremblingly provided an address, 31 Granville Road. With this clue in Tsim Sha Tsui, police immediately went to the scene. It was a 5-story building, and Ah Fong said, the murder happened in the 3rd-floor apartment, opposite the room where she once lived with her boyfriend. When asked to lead the way, Ah Fong turned pale with fear and refused to go any further, forcing the police to leave her downstairs. Another team climbed the dark stairway, lit only by a weak yellow bulb. They stopped in front of the 3rd-floor apartment door, knocked, but no one answered. Finally, they decided to break the lock and enter. As soon as the door opened, a foul stench rushed out. Experienced as they were, the officers instantly recognized it as the smell of decomposing flesh. Switching on the light, they saw 6 rooms inside. Right on the hallway floor lay a giant Hello Kitty doll, stained with blood and reeking of rot. One officer picked up a metal rod from the ground and poked the doll. When the tip touched the head of the doll, he felt something hard inside. At that moment, they were almost certain a murder had taken place here. They immediately called for backup. After reinforcements arrived, police carefully cut open the fabric of the finding it stuffed full of mothballs. Once the filling was removed, they discovered a human skull inside the doll's head. It had even been boiled. One officer later recalled that moment, saying he could never forget it. When the skull was found, a pungent stench rose along with dripping fluids. Flesh not fully decomposed, the bones incomplete, the lower jaw missing, the upper holding only a few teeth. There were also hair strands and roots. Elsewhere in the apartment, police found more teeth. 2 stoves stuffed with mothballs, a small fridge, and a hammer. More chilling still, on the first-floor rooftop, they found a plastic bag containing partly boiled organs, still not fully decomposed. Checking the fridge, scratch marks were visible inside. Police concluded they were left behind when storing body parts. The 2 stoves were confirmed as tools used to boil the head and organs. Inside the kitchen remained decayed tissue fragments. Because these parts had been boiled, DNA tests could not be performed to confirm identity. However, the police did not give up. They invited forensic dental experts to assist. Using image comparison techniques, experts matched Fan Man-yee's smiling photos with 2 teeth from the skull. Results showed the size and position matched perfectly. From that, police confirmed the remains belonged to Fan Man-yee. Fan Man-yee was born in 1977 and died at only 23 years old. Her childhood was full of hardship. At 6, her father abandoned the family to escape debts. Later, her mother remarried and stopped caring for her. Rejected by her family, she was sent to an orphanage, where she spent most of her childhood, until she had to leave at age 15, because healthy children could not stay longer. After that age, with nowhere to turn, Man-yee began struggling on her own. With no skills, she could only do heavy work like waitressing or newspaper delivery, but clumsy, she was often fired. When she had money, she rented a cheap room. When broke, she had to live in shabby. In her reckless youth, she mixed with young bikers, often racing around the city streets. Perhaps due to life's pressure, perhaps out of curiosity, she once fell into drug use. But her meager income never allowed her to sink too deep. Later, to earn quick money, Man-yee often worked around Yau Ma Tei and Mong Kok. Her life drifted on like this, until 1996. That year, at just 21 years old, through friends' introductions, she got a job at a bar. Compared to working the streets before, this job was much safer and the income was better. Less than a year later, she met a man who often came to the bar. His name was Chi-Yuan, also called Aho. The 2 quickly developed feelings. She believed she had found true love. Man-yee even quit her job to devote herself to him, hoping to build a new life. But Chi-Yuan's mother did not approve. She believed Man-yee's background was impure, not a respectable woman. Because of this fierce opposition, the 2 could not marry. Yet their love did not break apart. 2 years later, she bore Chi-Yuan a son. After giving birth, Man-yee moved in with his mother, but soon life became suffocating. Chi-Yuan grew irritable, often suspecting her of seeing other men. They quarreled constantly. He even laid hands on her many times. Seeing things go too far, Man-yee decided to take her child and leave to protect herself. She quietly saved money while raising her child and planning. But fate was unkind. Unable to repay debts, she was hunted down and captured at home. And the lender was none other than Chan Man-lok, one of the later killers. From then on, tragedy struck. Chan Man-lok, together with Liang Wai-luan and Liang Xingqiu, mercilessly murdered her. After identifying the suspects, police immediately launched a manhunt. They received a tip that Chan Man-lok was hiding in a house in Shengshui village, in the New Territories, not far from Man-yee's home, and about 12 kilometers from the crime scene on Granville Road. With this important lead, police quickly surrounded the place. When they raided, they found Chan Man, a baby lying in a crib. Caught off guard, he panicked in shock, never expecting to be arrested so soon. After arresting Chan Man-lok, police extracted more detailed information, then continued hunting the 2 remaining suspects. Hearing their comrade was caught, Liang Xingqiu and Liang Wai-luan immediately fled. 2 days later, realizing escape was impossible, Liang Xingqiu surrendered, hoping for leniency, while Liang Wai-luan, fearing exposure, fled straight from Hong Kong to Guangzhou. Upon hearing this, Hong Kong police coordinated with Guangzhou authorities to track him down. 9 months later, during a routine inspection, Guangzhou police stumbled upon Liang Wai-luan. Without identification papers, he was immediately detained. Soon after, he was escorted back to Hong Kong for trial. In this case, Chan Man-lok, 33 years old, was identified as the mastermind. He was both a loan shark and Man-yee's boss, as well as a member of a triad gang. Under him were 2 followers, Liang Xingqiu, 26, and Liang Wai-luan, 19. 2 years earlier, when Man-yee's grandmother was gravely ill and needed money for treatment, her boyfriend Chi-Yuan squandered all their savings on drugs. Desperate, Man-yee resorted to theft. She used her looks to approach Chan Man-lok and stole about 80 million VND, is almost equal to $3,200, along with some valuables. When the theft was discovered, Chan Man-lok immediately suspected Man-yee and sent his men to her home to demand money. But that money had long been spent. Man-yee could only beg for more time to repay. With no other choice, she returned to working at the bar. From then on, Chan Man-lok became her controller, forcing her to entertain clients to pay off the debt. Sometime later, Man-yee became pregnant but did not know who the father was. Yet the three men still did not let her go, continuing to force her to work. When she had repaid half of the stolen debt, she discovered that Chan Man-lok suddenly raised the interest, turning the remaining 40 million VND is almost equal to 1,600 US dollars into 300 million VND is almost equal to 12,000 US dollars. She was furious but dared not resist. She could only continue to endure. A year later, she scraped together another 140 million VND is almost equal to 5,600 US dollars. Adding to the 40 million VND is almost equal to 1,600 US dollars already paid. A total of 180 million VND is almost equal to 7,200 US dollars, many times the original debt. Yet Chan Man-lok still did not relent. Beyond endurance, Man-yee decided to stop entertaining clients and cut contact. This action enraged Chan Man-lok. 2 months before the crime, he ordered Leung Shing-cho and Leung Wai-luan to abduct Man-yee and imprison her in the apartment at 31 Granville Road, Tsim Sha Tsui. Building 31 had 2 owners, but due to disputes it was abandoned. Many rooms were left unmanaged. 2 of Chan Man-lok's friends lived on the 2nd floor. Knowing the 3rd floor unit was vacant, they let him use it. The apartment had 6 rooms in total. Chan Man-lok and his wife stayed in room 4, Leung Shing-cho and his girlfriend in room 6, Leung Wai-luan and his girlfriend Ah-fong in room 1, while poor Man-yee was locked in room 3. At that time, Chan Man-lok's wife had just given birth, so she often took the baby to stay with friends downstairs, only occasionally going up to the 3rd floor. The 2 friends on the 2nd floor also visited frequently. Thus, during the month of captivity, at least 8 people knew what Fan Man-yee was enduring. On the first day of captivity, Chan Man-lok shouted furiously, cursing her for not paying her debt and not answering the phone. Afterward, he ordered Leung Wai-luan to act. Wai-luan kicked her more than 50 times. A frail woman like Man-yee, how could she endure such a brutal beating? She could only cry out in despair. To stop her screams from leaking outside, they boarded up the window with wooden planks. After that, the 3 men took turns committing cruel acts, turning the room into a torture chamber. Man-yee became exhausted, nearly unconscious, lying motionless on the floor, while they sat nearby eating and drinking, as if they heard nothing of her groans. Whenever they remembered, they would return to torment her more. At mealtimes they threw food on the floor, forcing Man-yee to crawl and pick it up to eat. Unable to bear the humiliation, she firmly refused. Chan Man-lok picked the food up from the floor, forced her mouth open and shoved it in. She vomited violently. Unfortunately, the vomit splattered all over him. Enraged, Chan Man-lok grabbed and dragged her up, venting his fury with continuous blows. Still unsatisfied, he even poured hot oil into her mouth. From then on, all kinds of cruel torture continued, day after day. For more than a month, Fan Man-yee had to endure unimaginable suffering, until one day, in mental collapse and physical exhaustion, she fainted, having already collapsed several times before. They barely cared, leaving her there and going out drinking. That night when they returned, they found Man-yee lying in the bathroom. To be sure she was still alive, Chan Man-lok struck her chest hard with a metal rod. Her body twitched slightly. Ah-fong, standing nearby, screamed in fear. Chan Man-lok and Leung Wai-luan tricked her, saying, "It's just a drug shock, nothing serious." A moment later, Man-yee lay motionless again. Still unsure, Chan Man-lok took a lighter and burned her feet, making her writhe in pain. Confirming she was still alive, they dragged her to a corner and went back to sleep, leaving her barely clinging to life. The next morning, Leung Wai-luan woke Ah-fong, telling her to check on Fan Man-yee's condition. When she entered the bathroom, Ah-fong saw Man-yee lying still. She trembled, touching her chest. She realized the heart had stopped. Her limbs were stiff. Terrified, Ah-fong rushed out, telling Leung Wai-luan and the others that Fan Man-yee was dead. At first, they didn't bother to deal with it, leaving the body lying there. A few days later, when the stench grew stronger, they finally decided to dispose of it. The body was dragged from the bathroom, dismembered and stored in the fridge, waiting for a chance to discard it. To avoid suspicion, they divided it into plastic bags and scattered them at different garbage sites. However, one bag of organs was left undisposed. Too lazy to make another trip, Chan Man-lok threw it out the window, landing on the 1st floor terrace. As for the head, he boiled it in a pot, then stuffed it into a Hello Kitty mermaid doll, sewed it shut, and left it in the apartment. In fact, weeks before Ah-fong reported the crime, police had received complaints from residents of 31 Granville Road about a strange foul smell, but inspections found nothing. assuming it was environmental. Later, many residents said they often saw strangers coming and going, and even heard suspicious noises from the third floor. But with windows boarded up, no one saw clearly. A year and a half later, the case was brought to trial at Hong Kong's High Court, with a jury of 7. Chan Man-lok, Leung Shing-cho, and Leung Wai-luan were charged with murder, as well as preventing lawful burial. At the trial, all 3 admitted to obstructing burial, but unanimously denied murder. Leung Shing-cho and Leung Wai-luan claimed they only followed Chan Man-lok's orders. Fong also said she did not directly witness the death and did not know the exact cause. The defense argued that Fan Man-yee died of a drug overdose, but the prosecution rejected this, citing testimony that blood flowed from the victim's ears, a sign of serious trauma. After 2 months of trial, the jury, by a 6-1 vote, convicted all 3 of manslaughter instead of murder. The court sentenced them to life imprisonment, no parole for 25 years, the maximum penalty for manslaughter. However, all 3 appealed. The sentences of Chan Man-lok and Leung Wai-luan were upheld, but Leung Shing-cho's was reduced to 18 years, thanks to his surrender and cooperation. He was released in 2014, but in 2021, Leung Shing-cho reoffended, this time sentenced to 12 months in prison. This is the full story of the Hello Kitty case, one of the most haunting crimes in Hong Kong. The fact that the killers were not convicted of murder left many deeply unsettled. Afterwards, the building at 31 Granville Road was demolished and replaced with a new structure. Yet the memory of that horrific crime still lingers, etched in the minds of the people. Now, amid the bustling, lively street, few still know that this was once the scene of a chilling crime.